This is Charles Kao with Travel Mall TV. I'm here with Roberto Klabin, managing owner of the Caiman Ecological Lodge in Brazil. Good morning.
Morning, Charles. How are you? Thank you.
Robert's lodge is one of the finalists in the WTTC's Tourism for Tomorrow Awards in the conservation category. It's very much a distinction to be one of the finalists, and we're here chatting with Roberto about the lodge. It's Roberto. It's located west of Brasilia, next to Bolivia. How far next to either points?
It's around more or less 1,200 kilometers from São Paulo, towards the west, near the border of Bolivia and Paraguay.
And what? How many acres? What are the surroundings?
Well, this is a place. It's a very large place. My property has around 120,000 acres of land in the Pantanal. The Pantanal is a huge area. It's a wetland, bigger than Portugal here, this country where we are, and so it's enormous. And I occupy a piece of the Pantanal, little piece of the Pantanal, in the southern part of the Pantanal.
And this wetland is a UNESCO biosphere site, is it?
That's right. That's right.
And you were telling me a little background about this, that this land was purchased in 1912, or some British people owned it and started developing in 1912. Tell us a little bit about that history.
Well, they came in 1912. These British investors were investing in ranches, railroads, building cities in southern Brazil, Mato Grosso, the state, and northern Argentina and Paraguay. So they bought this area. It was a huge area, around 550,000 acres of land at that time. And so they started developing cattle breeding there. They stayed with this ranch until 1950, when my family acquired the ranch. And finally, my family divided the ranch among its members in 1983. And at that time, I had the opportunity to receive one piece of it, and then I acquired another one, developed Caiman as not only a cattle breeding ranch, but also I developed projects in conservation, and because of that, ecotourism.
Ecotourism. So you have a lodge there, 23 units. Tell us a little bit about the lodge and what is the attraction for your guests.
Basically, the Pantanal is, as I said, it's a wetland. It's one of the richest places in Earth for wildlife viewing, especially bird life. We have around 684 species of birds in the Pantanal. And it's an open space, so you can really see a lot of animals. And my place, basically, when I started having the idea of developing ecotourism, I went to places that existed already in South Africa, in Venezuela, in Costa Rica. This was 20 years ago, and I inspired myself into those experiences. And I brought all those experiences to Caiman and developed my first lodge. Basically, what we do there, we have outings, one in the morning very early, one in the evening, and one in the night to spot animals at night. And we have guides that are bilingual, are all biologists, veterinarians. They go out with you. They interpret nature for you. So it's a very interesting place, a place really for nature lovers, people that want to see wildlife.
Okay, we'll come back to the tourism aspects of it, but I wanted to get a little background about going back to when you acquired it and acquired some additional land. As you said, cattle ranching was what was going on there, and obviously you had people working on the cattle ranch. And now let's pick it up from there. Why did you decide to get into the tourism side? What's happened to the dynamics of the area and the community as you opened up tourism?
Well, first of all, most people believe that cattle ranching damages, let's say, some of these natural areas. And so when you talk about ecotourism and cattle ranching would be a problem. Not in the Pantanal, because the Pantanal is basically composed of open spaces where people 250 years ago started ranching, cattle ranching in the area, using these open natural spaces. So basically we don't have to clear the forest to have cattle ranching in the Pantanal. So this is one thing. But at that time, when the ranch was, my Caiman was developed from the previous big ranch, what did I do? I realized that with the division of that huge ranch, some of the areas were going to be developed in a way that they had not been in the past. So I thought to myself, well, I want to keep some part of this area that I have intact. So I created a reserve around 12,000 acres of land. Is a private reserve inside my property. And this reserve has no cattle inside and no people inside. And it's one of the most beautiful areas in that property because it's a transitional area between a higher land and this wetland. So it's a very interesting place. Then, when I did that, I started thinking, well, as I do this, I want to invite scientists to come to my place and start projects, but projects that will be of practical use to this property and to other properties, maybe becoming a model of working in the Pantanal. So I invited people, for instance, that study jaguars. Jaguars in the Pantanal are considered a pest. Can you believe that?
Jaguars, those beautiful, fast-running animals.
Yeah, those huge cats, very strong cats, and well, in the Pantanal you still have a lot of jaguars, but they are why do they are considered pests? Because they are a threat to the ranchers. They eat a lot of cattle. Only in my property, we lose every year around 600 head of cattle. And this is a figure that was really confirmed by the scientists that are working there. But what do? I am working with the jaguar, studying the jaguar, because I want to make the jaguar pay all the cattle it eats. It will pay one day, but not hunting the jaguar, but developing a project of tourism with the jaguar, where guests can go with the scientists after these animals and accompany the scientists in their projects of studying the animals, going out, and this is something that we know because most of the jaguars now that we have in the ranch have a radio collar, and so they track the animals, so you can see the animals there sometimes. So it's a very interesting work, and maybe in 2 or 3 years, these animals, with all the data that we have, the knowledge that we have, we will be able to have these guests going with the scientists, and finally the jaguar will pay for all this cattle that it eats. And besides the jaguar projects, we have the Hyacinth Macaw project, which is another project, very interesting project with this huge bird that was becoming extinct in the Pantanal.
What is it called again?
Hyacinth macaw. It's a macaw. It's a huge. It's the largest macaw in the world. It's the family of the parrots, parakeet, okay. But it's the largest one. It's a blue macaw. It's beautiful. And when we started this project, in my place there were around 80 individuals. And because of the work of this scientist that went there 12 years ago, now we have around 450 individuals in this place. And this is one of the biggest attractions for my guests that come from all over the world, especially bird watchers, to come and see this animal in the Pantanal.
Were they 12 years ago considered an endangered species?
Yes. And this scientist came to the Pantanal, and the first thing she did was, first of all, to teach all the ranchers that this animal is a very specialized animal. It only nests in 2 species of trees. And one of the trees was being cut down by the ranchers. Why? Because this tree has a seed that is poisonous to the cattle. So normally people would cut down this tree. And if you cut down the tree, less houses for the birds. So what did she do? She started installing artificial nests. So because of the artificial nests that she started installing all over the places, now we have a larger population.
So the tourists, I understand, come predominantly from North America, United States, and you work a lot with the travel trade there in selling your lodge in marketing. Tell us a little bit about that aspect. As you know, our audience consists of a lot of people that are in the travel industry.
Well, we have been working for the last almost 10 years with one of our major partners is International Expeditions in the United States, a great company, and
They're a wholesaler, tour operator.
yeah, and so we through them and because of this contact, we started visiting also foundations and museums and associations, bird watchers, and so we sometimes participate in some of these trade fairs. We belonged in the past to the Ecotourism Association, and so because of this, we started knowing a lot of people. And nowadays, most of our guests they come from the United States, and let's say 70% of our guests are foreigners, and they come. The major part are North Americans and Europeans.
How long do they stay on the average?
Around 4 nights.
I understand that when you transformed this cattle ranch into an eco lodge, the local population, who had previously worked for you and your family on the ranching part, by nature of the eco lodge, you were explaining to me that their wives were able to help work in the lodge and now they have a double income family. What services then, if you tell us, did you start providing for the families now that they're two working parents?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, as I was explaining to you, before only the men worked at the ranch. And because of the lodge, I started inviting the women to work there. And now not only the women are working there, but also the men are working there too as guides, local guides, working inside the lodge. And also the children, that we have a school inside the ranch. And some of these children now are having English classes there and are going out also with the guests, showing the guests, not going out into the let's say, the big outings, but around the lodges they are showing the guests what's all about. And you have a small community there. That's very interesting. And first of all, this is the community that was developed there by these British investors. They brought a lot of Brazilians from all over the places around the Pantanal to live there almost 100 years ago. And now I have, as I was explaining to you, already fourth generation of people living there. And that it makes the place a very special place because everybody is related to everybody, and they all know all the old stories about the British managers that went there, and during the First World War they all went back to England and they all died. It's very interesting. And there came new managers there, and until they stayed there until the 50s. And how was the place during the British, let's say, rule in that branch there? What happened at that time?
Did they develop their own, what kind of culture and arts or crafts, if any such things, distinguished markings did they develop for their community?
Basically, they like to work with. They are good at wood. They are sculptures, and they make a lot of works with this because normally the cowboys, when they are not working, and they have their idle time there, they can make hats, they can make belts, they can. It's small things that we try to sell these things to the guests, or the guests buy directly from these people normally.
How about music or no?
Music. Our music there comes basically. The influence is Paraguayan, interesting, and southern Brazil. So we have one very interesting. It's a moment in the ranch where we have this cowboy show where every July they develop this rodeo, and so they show their skills, in lasso and everything. And so this is the time when they dress like the old people in the Pantanal, and they show all the beautiful, clothing, and they show their skills. And this is an interesting time because we have a lot of music at that time, and all this music from Paraguay and southern Brazil. It's what they like, but we don't have, let's say, singers there at the ranch or even composers there. The music comes from abroad.
And how many other eco lodges or tourism type hospitality facilities are there in this wetland area?
In the southern Pantanal, I think we have around probably 15 lodges. All are very small, ranging from 5 rooms to 20 rooms. So I am considered the largest one with 23 rooms. So this is basically what happens. And most of them are, like in my case, ranches that open their main houses to receive guests.
And of course, with the vast size of Pantanal, when you say there's 15 in the southern part of it, it's like saying there's 15 in southern Portugal.
Yeah, you can think about that, that's right.
Okay. And is there a tourism organization that looks after the promotion or in providing information for Pantanal?
Yes. All these owners, we are united in a small organization that try to promote the southern Pantanal and all the lodges in the southern Pantanal, and the local government tries to help also.
And what is this organization called?
It's the Association of the Small Lodge Owners. It's something.
Okay, no, but on Google's, what would I look up? Oh, you don't have a website yet.
No, they don't have a website. But anyway, it's in the process of becoming.
In the United States, other than international expeditions, which other wholesalers can they contact?
Well,
Tour operators.
Well, there are several tour operators in the United States.
You want to name them for us?
Well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is excellent. In ending, I'd like to ask about UNESCO's role there, Natural Science Division, Man and Biospheres. Are they active at all down there?
No.
Should they be?
Oh, yes. The Pantanal is under threat because what's happening in Brazil, especially in the areas adjacent to the Pantanal, is that the Pantanal is now, all around the Pantanal, it's being planted with sugarcane for ethanol, alcohol, and this is a threat because this is bringing most of the ranchers that were having their places before with cattle ranching, now they are renting these places for the sugarcane planters. So basically they're going towards the Pantanal to develop cattle ranching. And some of these people don't respect the Pantanal as the old Pantanal people used to respect. As
the sugarcane people?
Yeah, no, the sugarcane people are not going into the Pantanal. They stayed out of the Pantanal because the Pantanal is not good enough for that.
I see.
The problem is that as they plant sugarcane all around the Pantanal, the people that used to have cattle in those areas that are now sugarcane or soybeans, they are going towards the Pantanal to develop cattle ranching in the Pantanal. And these people normally don't abide to the traditions of the old pantaneros, meaning what? As I explained in the beginning of the interview, we don't need to clear down forests to have cattle there. We can use the cattle in the open grazing areas that we have, natural grazing areas. But most of these people that are coming to the Pantanal, they are cutting forests, especially at the beginning of the Pantanal. So they are cutting down forests in order to have more productivity, because productivity in the Pantanal is low compared to other areas outside the Pantanal. But because the land that they were using is now sugarcane, they go into the Pantanal. The land is very cheap, so they buy land in the Pantanal and they try to develop it and became more productive. So that's why the Pantanal is under threat. And as you said, what is the action of UNESCO or Brazilian government and everything in the area? One of the reasons that the Pantanal is still in good condition is that 99% of the Pantanal is in private hands. 99%. So this is if it still is in private hands of old people, that people that understand about the cycle of the waters in the Pantanal and everything, this is a protection for the Pantanal because it's a land that is owned. And normally what happens in my country is that when you have a land that belongs to the government, either it is a park, a reserve, whatever, people consider it no man's land. And so it can be invaded, the government has no money to keep it, no staff in most of these areas. So it's a threat to these areas. When this is a private land, at least it's under control. So this is good for the Pantanal. The problem is that the new owners, as I explained, are coming with a different mentality, and this can be a threat. So we, the old owners of the Pantanal, are always very, worried about what's coming in the Pantanal, and we try to educate people. And Caiman, as I explained to you, is a small model of what can become in the Pantanal. Because if I try to combine, as I explained, cattle ranching, ecotourism, and research, if I can accommodate these three activities, generating information and procedures, new procedures, respecting nature, this is a real...
And making money.
Of course, and this is real sustainable development because this can be replicated. People can understand, well, my property is better for cattle breeding, but I can start something with tourism or only tourism, not cattle breeding, and let's see what's going on. And so Caiman now is being regarded as a model. I was a pioneer 20 years ago to bringing this kind of tourism into the Pantanal. Before that, there was no tourism like this.
So what going back to whether it be government or NGOs, UNESCO's and whatnot, what do you think they can or should be doing?
Well, NGOs are very much involved in the area. World Wildlife Fund, Nature Conservancy, Conservation International, all these organizations are in the Pantanal, working in the Pantanal, and very active. And as I explained, Brazilian government has its problems. It's starting to work, but still not very active. And the private owners of land, very, very active, trying to protect their lands.
Thank you very much, Roberto. This is very enlightening, and best of luck that your experimentation, your successes will be expanded and shared by others.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you for the opportunity.